We're joined today by legendary VCSU coach Jim Dew. Coach Dew, former baseball coach here at Valley City State, I believe 1974 to 93 for football and 74 to 91 for baseball. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and how have you been?
Excellent. Cannot complain. It's been fun following grandkids now since I'm not following all of my former players as much as I like to. But also, one nice thing about technology is that we can keep up with a lot of those guys and see what they're doing. I talked with a couple of them this last week about coming back for homecoming and so on. So it's been great.
So one thing I feel like you do well is stay in touch with some of your former players, and I hear a lot of stories from them about you and vice versa. What has that connection been like for you with former guys that you coach?
That's been great because we've been, you go through the recruiting process, you go through 4 years of playing, and then with a lot of them, they become student coaches. Student coaches were the lifeblood of our football program when I was coaching, and now you're seeing what they're doing, following their college careers, coaching, whether they're head coaches or assistant coaches, and then seeing some of them that have got grandkids now, and then I can tell them, well, you got to catch up to me a little bit better because I just had my first great-grandchild last August. So it's been a fun experience.
That's good. Well, you mentioned chasing grandkids around, and I guess we'll get into some of your former players and what they're up to now later. But I kind of want to start there. Like, how did you get into athletics? As a kid, what were some of the sports you were interested in? How did that passion develop for you?
Well, I went to private elementary school and private high school. My father passed away when I was young, and my mother was smart enough to get me into places where I'd have male supervision and places that would teach me proper etiquette and proper sports and so on. And so I started playing. I played all the sports like everybody, but football and baseball became my two main sports. And baseball was probably my best sport. And got drafted in college by the Giants in 1966, and I had another year of eligibility left, and they thought that Sadak from Minnesota, who they drafted the same year as me in '66, he was a little bit better catcher than me, I think, and he made it to the majors. So I took off into the coaching role. I played some semi-pro football after I graduated from Mayville State in Racine, Wisconsin. Then I decided I wanted to become a college coach or get into coaching more, more in depth. And so I did Bemidji State for my master's and coached football and baseball there, and then ended up at the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse for 3 years. And luckily, Orlo Sundry, who was working here at Valley City State, he called me my third year at University of Wisconsin Lacrosse and said, we got a football position open. We'd like you to maybe think about applying. And talked with Bill Osmond and a few other people, and I ended up here, and best move I ever made.
Any hesitation, former Comet, coming to Valley City State School? I'm sure you faced.
None at all. None at all. We, luckily I got a chance to coach against my former coaches.
Okay.
Al Meyer being the main one. He was a baseball legend at Mayville, and one of the reasons I ended up going to Mayville State. So it just we had some great opportunities playing against each other, and luckily we beat him in '78 to go to the district playoffs, and he retired after that. So I told him, I said, geez, I didn't want you to retire after I beat you, but he beat me more times than I beat him. I know that.
So you mentioned a guy like Al Meyer. Who are some of those coaches that influenced you as you grew up and grew into your role as a college coach?
Well, I had some great high school coaches, and the neat thing about that is my former high school, Mount St. Joe High School, was all-boys high school run by the Zavarian brothers, and I've got one of my former players from Valley City State that's back there coaching at Mount St. Joe High School, and Pete Hughes, who's a Hall of Famer at Valley City State, and it just does a great job out there. And Walter Yaus, who was a baseball coach for Leones, which was an elite team in Maryland that played a Legion League, but we also played, I think we played 75 games one summer. We went to military bases and so on and played all over the country. he's the one that made me a catcher. I was an outfielder at Mount St. Joe and a pretty good one, but our catcher from high school at Mount St. Joe signed with the Orioles right out of high school. Walter Yaus, the first day of practice, summer practice with them, handed me a catcher's mitt and said, "Jim, you're now our catcher." And things worked out pretty well becoming a catcher. I played with three guys that made it to the major leagues. With Ron Swoboda made the big catch for the Mets in '69. Jimmy Spencer played with the Yankees, and Dave Boswell was a pretty good pitcher with the Twins. So playing with guys like that made me a little bit better player also. And had a pretty good career at Mayville. I think we went to the Nationals in '64, which was my first year. Baseball-wise, probably the best baseball team I think Mayville State's ever had, with Doug Aiken, who was...
That's saying something in Mayville.
It's saying something, but we made it to the Nationals. We got to the semifinal round, and unfortunately for us, a scout like one of our players, and not a whole lot of people knew this player had come out from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and had signed a Major League Baseball contract after high school and played a year or two in the minor leagues before he came to college.
Oh, really?
So they found out about it, and we got released from that tournament.
Sure.
So, but I had some great coaches all the way along, and Jerome Berg was a football coach at Mayville.
Yep.
They're having a Jerome Berg memorial game at homecoming this year at Mayville, and fortunately, Valley City State will be playing that game on September the 28th, and so that'll be nice to be up there, and I'll be cheering for both teams.
Big collision of two worlds for you.
That's for sure.
So you're a catcher in baseball. What was your position in football when you played?
I was a quarterback, and played defense. That was when you played two sides of the ball, and I played defensive back and was a quarterback, and had a nice career at Mayville. The first game I started for him was my freshman year, third game of the year. It was against Jamestown, and the guy that helped me get into Mayville State was a guy named Dan Sellers. Well, he became president at Jamestown College after I accepted the position and scholarship at Mayville. My first game against Jamestown, I threw a couple touchdown passes to Doug Aiken, who was the North Dakota Athlete of the Year totally in '64. And Dan Sellers caught a little bit of static from Mayville, from the Jamestown people when the papers read Jim Dew recruited to Mayville by our president, Sellers. So, but it was a fun career, and playing for Jerome Berg and Orlo Sundry and Al Meyer. They were great coaches at Mayville State.
So when you took over Valley City State baseball, football, what were your ideas and expectations for what you wanted to accomplish as a college coach?
Well, I wanted to have success on and off the field. And on the field, you try to win a championship, and we had the opportunity to do that with a number of games, a number of teams, rather. Develop a coaching staff that was going to be able to help you do that. Well, I inherited a great defensive coordinator in Don Lemnis, and he was there until I think it was probably '83 or '84. We selected a new athletic director. Bill Osmond retired. He was a great athletic director, and it came down between three guys, and our basketball coach, who was Darrell Anderson, got the job. And my favorite was not any one of the ones I'm talking about. He was at the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, and it was a coordinator of athletics there. But I think our president thought he might have been a little bit too aggressive in coming in. So Darrell was given the job, and he was a quality basketball coach, and did a good job as AD. Don Lemnis ended up moving to Dickinson State, and that's where we started running into some problems because a coach that was hired to be my defensive coordinator had never coached football in college. He was a junior high coach coming out of college, and so we had a lot of quality coaches that came, and we never had a full-time staff. That was the problem.
Right.
We had great volunteers. Bob Brushwine was unbelievable. He coached for me for about 12, 13 years. I think he finished up in 1985.
Okay.
And then Dave Roush, who played and was an All-American linebacker for us, became another volunteer for us, and
Still going today as a volunteer.
Still
coach.
going
That's
today
crazy.
as a volunteer.
Yeah.
He's just great. And but our assistant coaches basically were guys that we brought in that had some experience. And we're looking to get a lot more experience. I think of guys like Gary Rushing, who was a great wrestling coach, went on to Mankato State. Gary became my defensive coordinator, had not coached before,
Okay.
but luckily that year we had assistant coaches that were students playing football the year before, guys like Ted Knutson, Tommy Spencer, and there were just so many quality student coaches. Many of those guys went on to have outstanding high school careers and college careers as head coaches. So, and that it kind of went every year. We would end up with maybe a new defensive coordinator because Rushing moved to Mankato as a head wrestling coach. After Gary Rushing, Dale Lennon came in, and Dale Lennon was a great coach. He spent 1 year with us and then moved on to a full-time coaching position. We gave him a position that basically he was in the dormitory as a head resident and coaching. And
Okay.
there was a slight stipend in there.
Yeah.
Went to Dickinson, and then he made his progression up to UND where he won a national championship. Jerry Eroshenko was one that came in for a number of years. And then other guys that came in that had great careers. Greg Berg, Craig Schneider was in, and it got to be where it just made me excited every year to get a new guy coming in. But it didn't really help the total program because,
Sure.
Minot State one year was recruiting a guy that we were recruiting, and the kid came back and asked me, Coach, Minot, the coaches said, ask Coach Dew who his defensive coordinator is going to be next year. And I told him it'll be a good one. But we had a transition that wasn't going really good. Since I've left and retired, we've had just great administration that has done a super job. I think now the president that we have at Valley City State has just done a super job. And we've got a staff that has full-time coaches, probably 4 or 5 full-time coaches,
Yeah.
plus GA positions. And so our GAs and our partly full-time coaches were quality student coaches, and that's why you're going to be talking about a lot of guys that have had really made some great moves as coaches and people. And mentioning people, the other thing that we really were conscious about was, you're going to be done with a coaching career, or you're going to be done with your education in some time in the future. You've got to be able to handle these kids, and these kids have to understand how to handle themselves when they get done with their playing career. That means how you're going to handle yourself not only in the classroom, but when you get married, when you have kids. Are you going to open the door for somebody that's walking in behind you, being a young lady? Are you going to what kind of language you're going to use on the field? I know I've used hell a few times, and I've said catch the damn ball a few times, but I don't think you'll hear any of those other words come out of me. And so I think a lot of our kids developed that type of attitude also and took it with them into their coaching. And I'm proud of that.
Is that something you talked a lot about as a coach with your players and with your assistants?
It's funny you mentioned that because I always like to take our kids after a ball game. We're on the road. We'd stop at a restaurant, and they knew when they got to a restaurant, if it was a buffet, they knew first of all you leave your hats in the car. You don't wear a hat sitting at the dining room table.
Okay.
And you ate as much as you wanted at that buffet, but you went back for seconds and thirds. You didn't fill your plate to such a way that you looked like you were a pig. So and those types of things. One of my players mentioned a while back that he made sure that all of his players always took their hats off. And this was at a scholarship. No, it's a Hall of Fame. When he was inducting one of his former wrestlers, he mentioned that, and I felt pretty proud of that.
Sure.
And so a lot of those things, that have come back, and you just really feel good about it.
So a lot of stuff has changed over the years, recruiting being one of them. With today's technology, coaches can easily pull up film, make video calls with recruits. How did you handle recruiting in your early years, mid-'70s? And what did you look for in guys that you were trying to recruit?
Well, number one, I tried to get on the road anytime I could.
Okay.
You had your student coaches that maybe helped you back at their high school. We got kids out of Florida because one of the first kids that I recruited in that 74 recruiting class was a guy named Pete Quigley, who did a great job, went back and coached in Florida for a long time, sent some kids back. So I used coaches, former players a lot. I got on the road sometime, but, tons of phone calls. I know I'd see my count of phone calls for the month of January. It might have been 350, 450 calls. My wife was wondering, are you spending all of your time in the office? Because we didn't have cell phones, so I had to go into the office to use the school phone. But those are things you expected to do. And I was doing the thing that I loved doing, was coaching football and coaching baseball. And that was a big thing also. I don't think you see it as much now, but back in my time, a lot of my great athletes were two-sport athletes.
Yeah.
Probably the best, and I had a lot of good running backs, but the one that went the farthest, Buck Kozlowski from Buffalo, North Dakota, he came to Valley City State, and you got to admit it, because we recruited for football and basketball. Basketball was his love.
Okay.
Buck was signed by the Dallas Cowboys, made it through all their cuts, and he decided that he was going to come back, be together with his wife, teach, and he ended up being a great teacher and coach in Grand Forks. So, and you look at Scott Radloff, probably the best baseball player I ever had, went with Cincinnati Reds. He played two sports. A lot of quality athletes that did that, and you could go on and on talking about that. We're finding nowadays it's hard to get the two-sport athlete because season's going. You've got spring football. You've got fall practices. You got for whatever sport, basketball season. It's getting longer and longer. Got to be a year-round sport for most people.
Yeah, we've had some guys recently do football, baseball, some football, track and field. Those work okay. On the women's side, a lot. Actually, it's been volleyball. Basketball's worked well, volleyball, track and field, but you're right, it's certainly not nearly what it used to be, especially in your day. But so when you're recruiting athletes, purely athletic talent, did you look for, were there certain characteristics they had that would be do not touch, or yes, we need this type of player?
Well, you look for a person that's a quality person first. In athletic ability, you get a person that's got athletic ability, and you bring them in and teach them your system, and you do a decent job getting them to fit into that system, moving them if you have to, and so on. But that's a big thing, and I tried to make visits to kids every year. I try to take one visit. I'd been to Florida to visit kids. I've been to Michigan. We had a year in Michigan in the late 70s where I think we got 5 kids the same year out of Monroe High School in Detroit, outside of Detroit, Michigan. And then that led to getting Billy Wilson and Tommy Spencer out of the Detroit area. So all of a sudden, some of those things just fell together and worked for you. So it's that was fun. Being on the road and recruiting. It wasn't always fun driving back in snowstorms, but it was fun getting a chance to meet coaches all over the country, and that paid off for us. The coaches saw that their kids were enjoying themselves. The kids went home and said they liked Valley City State. You come to a small town, small college, you get a lot of individualized attention. Yeah. And when you get a guy that's teaching science like Joe Stickler that these kids just love as a professor, and Joe talks to a guy about, hey, enjoy yourself with football, but make sure you're doing a good job in the classroom, that's very important.
So when you recruit these athletes, when they're playing for you, is it obvious who who of those are going to go on to become successful coaches? Do you notice that as well while they're in college?
You can see a lot of it because most of those guys, they finish their playing career, they're finishing their degree, and they want to coach. They want to start coaching right now, and they become student coaches. You could see those guys that are going to be good ones. A Darren Lowe, who played and then coached a year after he got done, went on. He just retired this year from Northwest Missouri University as a head baseball coach for 25 years. And just that was the thing that helped us so much, and I think it helped those guys too, getting a chance to be involved with the team, be involved with other coaches, many of them who were their former teammates. But and then I'd like to think that we did a decent job as coaches in talking to these guys about problems that they could run into. I remember in '98 we won about 27 games in a row that conference games that we got beat in the playoffs a couple times. I'm not going to count those, but 27 regular games. We got beat about the third game of the year by Jamestown. I had one of our athletes come in and said, "Coach, I want to thank you for the opportunity to play in this game, a game that we lost." And I thought, what are you saying? We just lost the ball game. And he said to me, "I played at Shanley High School, never lost a game at Shanley."
Okay.
And he said, "This is the first game I've ever played in that we lost." And he said, "There will be times where I won't get the job that I apply for, or I'll lose something down the road, and this is going to help me." So I appreciated that.
Life lessons in athletics everywhere you look.
Yep.
That's good to hear. Well, so in the upcoming alumni bulletin, we're working on a story about a group of guys from 86 to 88. As we've talked about, you have a lot of guys that have gone on to become successful coaches, but this group, there's probably over 30 of them that identified in that 3-year stretch that went on. Did anything stand out to you about that group in that moment?
Most of them were student coaches that really contributed to our program. I mean, we had great success, in the mid-'70s, '80s, right on up there. We had years where we won 3 in a row championships. I think it was '83, '84, '85. And then we got Darren Lowe, Corey Anderson came in. You mentioned Corey. Corey gave up a year of eligibility to help out as a student coach to be with some of those guys that he really liked, and until '88 when they got into a playoff game. So that was the way kids were. They gave them themselves, just like Corey did in that situation. But I think a big thing with those kids was they wanted to be there, they wanted to have success, and they saw the program was having success. So that's that I thought was the biggest thing. And then the little things on the side that we talked about, I think some of them thought those things were important. I know I talk with guys today, and in these days, they'll talk about, "Hey, I notice you open the car door for your wife," or you walk on the roadside of your girlfriend as you're going in there. Or one I remember, he walked his girlfriend into the bubble, and they went up to their seats. They were going to go up to their seats, and he took 3 steps up ahead of her, and she stood at the bottom of the step. And he turned around and looked, and I made a mistake. And he went back down, grabbed her arm, and they walked up together. And he'll probably know that because he'll probably hear something about it. But it was just you're proud of those types of things.
Sure. On-field accomplishments. When we look at some of these guys, college head coaches, assistants, high school head coaches with state championships. Just one example: Kevin Bleskowski wins a national title in softball, I believe. How do you react when you hear that news and see that
was
play
so
out?
neat because Lefty, that's what he called him, Lefty Bleskowski. He played at Valley City State. He coached at Valley City State as a student coach under me. He wasn't an all-conference player, but he loved the game of baseball, and he saw an opportunity to do it in softball. And he's become, he still runs camps all over the country. He's not coaching in college anymore, but Lefty, being a Valley City kid on top of that, has just had a great career. And you look at that, you look at guy like Darren Lowe, I mentioned him. Corey Anderson. Corey played 2 sports, assistant in both at the college level, became the head baseball coach, and it just built on from there. And you can say I'm so proud of what he's done now, and the leadership that he's providing for the university and the foundation office is just great. Tons of guys. You mentioned a name, and I could tell you some neat stories about him and so on. But it's just it was just that's the one really neat thing about getting old is you got all those memories. So it really works with you.
You talk about memories. Are there any signature memories for you at VCSU? Obviously, you have a lot of them, but any that just stand out as the most memorable.
Oh, there are just so many of them. And I'll probably get emotional on this one, but we played we beat McMurray College down in Texas.
First national playoff win, Viking football history, and only still.
And only. We'll get some more along the way. But Cameron Doctor, who just retired last year, is the track coach and football coach at Fargo South.
Okay.
I went to his retirement party last Friday. His brother Kevin Doctor played with us, passed away this last year, and I can remember at the end of the game, Kevin made a big play, and at the end of the game, the only thing I remember is Cameron grabbing him, holding him up in the air, and it was just a memorable moment.
Yeah. So, I've seen that picture actually. I think that was in an Old Times record. So that's just
for sure.
Yeah,
that's what they were like. Players were like that, and they're still like that. But we're lucky to have had that.
Yeah. Road win, national playoffs at McMurray. Just that game in itself has to be a memorable moment for you and the guys in that game.
That was exciting. Nobody picked us to win that game. They were a loaded team. The night before we had the reception dinner and so on, and their players were kind of checking out our guys and wondering how bad we're gonna get beaten. Our guys just they put everything on the line. Scott Radloff probably made the best interception I've ever seen in the end zone on a pass where he went over top of a guy, didn't interfere with him, didn't touch him, and reached around him and grabbed the ball. And if a person saw a picture of that, you'd wonder how he didn't interfere, but he didn't. And John Bolstead, Valley City boy, had a great football game in that one, intercepted balls. And so it was just one of those things where we just came together. We had Mark Smetana, kid out of Baltimore, Maryland, little stocky 5'9" quarterback who was a heck of a second baseman. Played high school and amateur ball with Cal Ripken Jr. and growing up. So we just had kids. We were lucky to get some of those kids. How do you get a kid from Baltimore that played junior college and had a lot of schools talking to him for baseball? And get Smetana to come out here and play for you. It was just that type of situation. So, I think we did a decent job at putting guys in the positions that we thought they'd be really good in. I know I almost made a mistake one year in '74 with I talked about Buck Kozlowski again because he was a stud. And the first week of practice, we had some running backs that were returning. We had an Alvarez kid out of Florida who had been recruited by Coach Nyhus, who did a great job recruiting. There was a fullback, and I looked at Kozlowski, and he was a moose. And I said, Buck, I think we might make a linebacker out of you. And honest to God, Buck said to me, Coach, that'd be fine, but I think the next day after that, I'd probably be practicing with the basketball team. And he let me know that he wanted to be a fullback, and that was the best decision I ever made. Was not pushing that any further, and he became a great fullback for us, and so it just moved on and had a great career in both sports.
Sure. So that would have been your first year, 1974. What did you learn over the years, like in moments like that, or as a coach? How did you grow in those 19, 20 years?
Well, I learned that. Basically, you've got to look at the total aspect of it, the total player. his academic work, what he's going to do there, what he's going to do socially. Sure, you'd like to see him in a weight room every day and 8 hours a day. That'd be great. But there's a whole lot of things you have to do in preparing him not only to be a ball player, but to move on from that and to be able to do the things that we're talking about some of those guys doing right now. They have to understand discipline. They have to understand a whole lot of things and how to handle themselves all the way from etiquette to, making sure that you're taking the right classes to prepare yourself academically too. So it's just that's one of the things I thought was really important. I remember walking out of Fergus Falls Junior College I was going into the library to visit with a student athlete, and as I was walking toward the library door, I kind of felt behind me there's this young lady coming up behind me, and I opened the door and held it open for her, and she walked in and looked at me and said, "Wow, that doesn't happen around here a whole lot." And I said, "You come to Valley City State, it will happen a lot." And that's just one of the things we tried to impress on kids.
Sure. We've talked a lot about guys that have gone to become coaches. One person I do want to ask specifically about, Steve Quinn. He's maybe taken a little bit of a different route, managing partner of Football University, and I believe really they help prep high school kids for college and to be drafted, right?
You bet. Steve is out of Dobbs Ferry, New York. How do you get a kid from Dobbs Ferry to Valley City State? And there was a coach that was up there who knew something about Valley and gave me his name, and we got Steve to come out, and Steve had a great career with us as an offensive center. We knew he was going to end up in coaching. His first job, I think he was working in the strength program down at one of the municipal YMCA type places in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And he ends up getting involved with FBU, Football University, and he moved to New Jersey. Then from there he ends up down in Florida, and he's done a great job and taken the background that he had at Valley City State and working with kids, and he related well with people. And he's in a situation now where he has two sons that are both quarterbacks. One of them's already been offered by a couple big time, like Nebraska and some of those schools. The other one is going to be going on next year to a school that after he gets done with his last year of high school. But he's done a great job. He's hired guys like Frank Rojas, who was mentioned, I think, on our sheet there also. Yeah. He's from Florida. Frank runs all of his camps all over the country.
Okay.
And they get quality guys from all over the country that come in and take their clinic. He was very nice one year and invited me out. I helped him with a camp that they were running prior to their All-Star game in San Antonio. And so that was neat. And one of the quarterbacks who was out there was a guy named Trevor Lawrence. Was not a bad quarterback after he finished up with FBU at Clemson, and now he's in the NFL. So Steve did a great job. He's a coach. He didn't coach high school or college, but he's coaching guys, and he's probably got more guys that have gone on to Division I schools than anybody in the country, and he can look back and say, hey, that guy played for me, or this guy played for me, and so on. So that was great, and his camp was a good one. And that kind of, one of the things that kind of got me going early in my coaching career here also was we ran the first college football camp in the state of North Dakota in the mid-'70s, probably 75, 76. We started offering a football camp, and we were the only ones that were offering a college camp. There was a high school camp that was run. I think it was at Linton probably, but we got a lot of guys that come into the college camp, and that's where we got those doctor boys, Kevin and Cameron. They came in. Then Cameron ended up helping with that camp a few years later on, and now those camps have grown gigantically with what Coach Horner is doing with the camps and so on. So that's another important thing, and I think people saw that we were interested in making progress in football to where we'd offer camps. And every year I'd bring in a headliner for the camps, and we started out with Errol Mann, who was a pretty good kicker in his day. Okay. He worked with our kickers. Then when Mann left, I brought in Gary Zollner. Well, Gary Zollner played for me at Wisconsin Lacrosse, special teams coach for Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals. He still runs probably the best specialty camps in the country down in Arizona, where people from all over the country come in to work on their long snapping, their place kicking, their punting with his camps. And then we had a chance to get a quarterback to come in one year after he finished his pro career, and I had a young guy by the name of Randy Hedberg,
Really?
who is probably the best quarterbacks coach in the country now. If you look at how many guys he's got in the NFL, well, Randy came in and worked with our quarterbacks and did a great job. And
Okay.
you try to get a headliner each time, that opens it up for other people to say, hey, he's hiring good people. And we always tried to get high school coaches from around the area and then college coach from either UND or NDSU to come in and help you with the camp. So camps were very good for us also there.
Sure. There are a lot of college athletes, high school athletes, college athletes, that's their dream, right, is to go on to become a coach, or, they see some big-time coaches eventually want to work towards that. Having lived it yourself, right, baseball, softball, playing, and then transitioning into coaching, having seen it with a lot of your athletes, what's your advice for some of those people that want to transition into coaching?
Just take advantage of the opportunity if it comes up. Don't place yourself in a position where you say, I've got to be at a Division I school, or I've got to be at a 4A or 5A school. I look at Pete Hughes, who is one of the first black athletes that I recruited out of Maryland. Then John Overby came out from Maryland. But he finished up here at Valley City State, had a great career. His first coaching job was at Findlay, North Dakota. He's the head football coach at Findlay.
Yeah.
And probably the first black coach in the state of North Dakota. This was in 1979, I think, something like that. And he went on to become a great coach in Maryland at a 4A school. He left the 4A school, retired from there as a coach. He still teaches there, but he went over to my alma mater and coaches track and football over there. So take advantage of opportunities that you get, continue learning, progressing, studying, take extra courses. If you can get involved with a graduate course that's going to, take you on the road to a professional camp, and we did this also at Valley City. I offered a class, and it was called Advanced Football Theory. We didn't have a master's program then, so we couldn't offer master credits, but I went through North Dakota State, and for about 5 summers, we ended up taking players in the end of July, first part of August. We ended up offering a football advanced class where we took a group of coaches that were coaching in the high schools around or getting ready to coach. We took them to Mankato to be with the Minnesota Vikings. We took them to Platteville, Wisconsin to be with the Kansas City Chiefs, watch them practice. We went to, that was River Falls for the Chiefs. Chicago Bears practice at Platteville. We'd spend a couple of days at each of those camps learning from the pros and having a great time and interacting with each other. And I think that's the other thing that's really important is get to know other coaches and go to coaches' clinics and be involved in those types of things. And it's just going to make you better. I'm fortunate now to where I've got a grandson who played here at Valley City State for a few years, graduated Valley City State. His name is Mac Jones.
Yep.
And Mac is, he taught last year down and coached in the cities at Chisago Lakes, and he just took a position at Detroit Lakes High School where he's going to be teaching coaching football. He's a strength coach now. He's really into the strength training, and we're just he's made that progression, and it started out here. He worked in a couple different positions here with people, and really enjoyed the strength coach. He's done a great job with the strength program, and he's just making progression and becoming a coach. And I think he's going to be a dandy. And I look at him and see what a lot of these kids have done over the years too.
Sure. Yeah, so how's like your family? How do you still stay involved with athletics at this point? Is it through grandkids and stuff?
We're lucky. First of all, I've got a wife, my wife Paula, who I met at
Yep.
Mayville State. She's been involved throughout the years, letting me spend those hours on the road, letting me spend those hours in the office, making phone calls, making monster cookies and chocolate chip cookies for the guys at the ball practice. Come out on my birthday and bring stuff out like that. But it's been we've been very lucky in that respect to have people that have afforded us the opportunities to keep going with things like that. So it's just we're very lucky. I've been very lucky in that career to have those things available, and people help me. Kids that have daughters that have played sports. I've got a son,
Sure.
Jimmy, that played at Valley C State baseball
Yep.
and football, and so it's just we've been very fortunate in that respect.
So you coached Jimmy here, right?
I had Jimmy baseball
Yeah.
for I think it was probably 2 years. Then Corey took over and had him. Jimmy only played 1 year of football. He was a defensive back, punter, excellent punter. Decided he wanted to play some golf, and he and Matt Johnson and Kyle Bauer and so on. They were all on the same team. They went in the Hall of Fame, and so he had a nice career, and he played some amateur ball after that. And now he's watching his grandson play ball, and so I've had. I've got two of them left in college that are playing sports. Jace played ball at Bismarck State. He went to Ottawa University in Kansas and played. Now he's playing amateur ball in Dilworth, but he's working on his degree in engineering in Fargo, which he's made that move. Brooklyn Dew played. I'm giving you my family here now. Brooklyn played soccer at North Dakota State. Married a Bison quarterback, backup quarterbacks the backup to Trey Lance. This was Noah Sanders.
Okay.
There's my grandson-in-law, and they're the ones that had the great grandson for me.
Okay.
But they were involved in sports. Had a boy who was all state in Grand Forks in basketball. That was Reese Rocamp. Went to UMary last year. Now he's at the University of North Dakota working in the medical field. So there's a number of them that have done those things and so on. It's just been fun watching them now. So I need to remember I'm not the coach, so I need to kind of limit my words and actions. I'll try to throw a little advice out here and there, and they're receiving those things pretty well too. So, but it's just when you get up in age, you look back on those things and you look forward to, hey, maybe that great grandson, maybe I'll see him do something in the future. We'll see.
Yeah. Was that a tough transition going from being a coach and then having to pull yourself back a little bit?
You do have to pull yourself back a little bit, and I watch myself at ball games when I see a catcher not hustle down and back up first base on a throw, where I tried to teach basics in every single thing.
Sure.
And if I was to write a book, it would be on the basic skills that you don't see anymore. You see a situation where ball gets overthrown at home plate coming from the outfield. Where in the heck is the pitcher backing it up? You don't see some of those things nowadays. So those things I'll still mention. But with regard to other coaching things and strategies, I'll try to keep that to myself. And maybe one day I'll put it in a book. We'll see.
I think we would like to read that here on campus.
Thank you very
Include
much.
some stories from you, too. We'd appreciate that.
It's been a wonderful experience.
Anything else you want to add, Jim, about Valley City State, your experience here, and some of the guys that you coached?
I've just really enjoyed it. I'm tickled to see. First of all, tickled to see Al Olson back on campus.
Steve, you mean?
Yeah,
Steve.
Yep. Al's been on campus for a long time, but
I
got Al too. He played some baseball for me. But Steve back on campus and doing a great job. I don't talk anybody I talk to. They mention that they hear about Steve and what he's doing, and he was a great athlete for us. He's a Hall of Famer. Those types of things. But it's just. I'm just really tickled as to see what's happening now with that and the progress that the school is making. I think Valley City State is so fortunate to have President LaFarve. He's personable. He's outstanding. He gives the departments the ability to do the things they want to do. He's the reason a lot of these things are happening on campus and so on. So Valley City State's very lucky in having him on his campus. And I know Northern State wishes they had him back down there, but we're gonna keep him.
It's an exciting time here. A lot of growth
certainly.
on the university. Some new projects, new capital campaign for athletics, which we're really close on. That's going to be exciting, game changer for athletes. So yeah, we definitely excited, and I think we recognize the foundation that people like you and those that came before you have laid for Viking athletics and allowed our teams and our programs to have that success. And I think they want to continue that. So
well, I hope so. I know so. With the guys you got, it's going to happen. It's going to keep going. The new football conference, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't think I'm going to be able to make a couple of the away games unless they got extra seats on the airplane. So, but no, it's I think that'll go well. I would hope that something will happen in the near future where we're looking at Minot and Mary and Jamestown getting smart and getting back into a conference with us. I know they don't like to hear those things, but I heard the other day that Minot and Mary being in the same conference won't be playing each other for the next 2 years. That's a gigantic rivalry, and you're not going to be able to do that. And we won't be playing Jamestown probably because of the conference they're in. So it was a great league back then. I'd sure like to see it happen again, but whatever direction we go, we've got the administration and the coaches that'll do the job, and we'll be proud of it.
Yeah, college athletics is certainly, the landscape has definitely changed in the last 20
Lord.
to 30 years.
We could talk for another 3 hours on all those things that are happening and what I do and what I wouldn't do, but it's just happening. It's becoming pretty close to a professional sport, unfortunately, at some of those levels.
Yeah. Well, Jim, appreciate you taking the time today, and as always, good catching up with you. So thank you for coming back.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.